How's it going, gamers? And welcome to Nemo TCG. This is going to be the very first deck tech on my channel, so I appreciate you joining me. If you like what you see, make sure to hit that like button. Maybe consider dropping a subscribe. I really appreciate it. So, without further ado, let's jump into the deck. So, to start, I've got my Digitama here. I play 3 starter deck Coromon. Very simple include here. You get 4 of them with the deck, and also you're going to be building pretty tall. So this extra 1000 DP can really come in handy by the late game. Honestly, you could run this as 5. This deck's fairly straightforward when it comes to all the Digitama. But I like to slice in a Digimon and a Yokomon as a kind of tech choice here. Digimon seems to be more of a just consistent boost to the damage when you get into the later game. You really like to see his plus 1000 DP when it comes online after the 5 Digimon on your opponent's field go to the trash. Really just 5 cards in general. As long as they've got him in the trash, this card's active. And Yokomon does pretty much the same thing as Coromon or Digimon. It's a plus 1000 DP boost. However, it is only live when you're attacking your opponent's Digimon. That's why no matter what I do, whether I end up swapping these Coromon for Digimon, whether you have any preference on the other two, I do think Yokomon's a great include as a one of. It's not very expensive, and also if you're ever running up against a whole ton of black decks, a whole ton of blockers, this card can be great for the extra DP boost to get over them. And that's going to do it for our Digitama. Pretty straightforward. Just the 5. After them, we've got our rookies. For me, I really like the number 14 when it comes to rookies. Always seem to have them. So I play 14, starting with 2 Beamon. Honestly, this could be exchanged with the next rookie that I run, which is Monodramon. Any combination of 4 and 2, 3 and 3, totally up to you, however you prefer it. I personally just prefer the art of Monodramon because he's kind of a dinosaur dragon looking thing, which I think is pretty cool. Otherwise, their stats are identical. 2 to play, 0 to evolve, 3000 DP. These cards are absolutely incredible when you just need to drop something from your hand in that early game, get the ball rolling, or evolve on top of any of your Digitama. It's not going to cost you anything, and it's going to give your opponent very little memory if you do have to play them from hand. So they're awesome. After that, I play starter deck Agumon. This guy, I'm a huge Agumon fan, as you could probably guess by this being my first deck tech on the channel. But also, 2000 DP, not great on its own, but it's this inheritable effect that we're playing him for. Just a flat out, on your turn, the opponent or the Digimon above this gets 1000 DP. That really doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it's going to add up when we get into our taller stacks, going into the War Greymons, having the bonus security attacks, and going into a lot of combat. You definitely want as much DP on your side as you can get. And with that said, we also run 4 Gaiamon from BT1, I believe. BT2, I apologize, 1.5 then for us English players. Gaiamon here, same kind of deal as Digimon in the Digitama. You get plus 1000 DP if your opponent has 5 or more cards in their trash. It's also 3000 DP attacker and only 3 to play. So again, huge boost in the inheritable, not too bad to play. Of course, if you're dropping any rookies, you're going to be wanting to drop these from hand. Moving on, we've got our champions. And this is one slot that I've seen some people kind of playing around with a whole lot in these red decks. Something pretty consistent across them all, though, is Dark Tyrannomon. While he may not be my favorite Digimon, he doesn't really do anything besides be very expensive to play from hand and have a fairly high DP. He also is only 1 memory to Digivolve, which, with us trying to go tall as quickly as possible, that is incredible. The 1 memory evolve there is just absolutely insane. However, my favorite of our level 4s in this deck would be Greymon. He is, next to War Greymon, probably my favorite Digimon out there. And especially in the card game with that effect, plus 1 security attack, just as an inheritable. That is crazy in this deck. Only 2 to Digivolve, so not as cheap as Dark Tyrannomon, but really not all that expensive. Only a 4k DP attacker though, so you don't really want to be swinging with them. You just really want that extra security boost because, well, it's only 1 here. Again, your opponent's only got 5. So at a minimum, anything above this is checking 2 of those security cards. And as you'll notice, a theme in this deck is we like to check security. And then pretty standard, every red deck's going to be running one of these. Playset of Digimon. This is your blocker. That's really it. Moving on to level 5s. This again is where I've seen a whole lot of flexibility and where people are taking their red decks. For me personally, I'm sticking more to the Greymon theme. So I have 1 tech choice of Skull Greymon here. He's a little expensive from hand, but he kind of acts as a 5th copy of Gaia Force for this deck. On play, you can delete 1 of your opponent's blockers. Doesn't matter their DP, doesn't matter their level. If that card is stopping you from checking the 5 security on that Monster War Greymon you built up, play this card and get rid of it. It's less to play from hand than Gaia Force, and while it doesn't trigger insecurity, running this as a 1-of, you're likely not going to see it in security. You're going to draw into this card. And it can be absolutely incredible to maintain your momentum, dropping it on the board and getting rid of that 1 blocker that they got in your way, thinking they just saved themselves. Moving on again in the Greymon theme, I run 4 of the Metal Greymons. This is something that I've seen a lot of people swap, maybe 2 Skull Greymons, 3 Metal Greymons, or even 2 Metal Greymons and 3 Skull Greymons, depending on your personal meta. But for me, I like having it at 4, not only for the flavor of keeping this more Greymon central deck, but also that inheritable effect of whenever this card is blocked, you gain 3 memory, can come in absolutely clutch. He's in the late game when you've got a War Greymon on top of this that's about to be checking 3-4 security. They have to make the decision of whether or not they want to give you 3 more memory to extend your turn, or if they're willing to just say goodbye to all their security cards. This is kind of the most flexible spot. Coming up next, I run 1 Lavo-Garutamon and 3 Groundramon. These both essentially serve the same purpose. 2 cost to Digivolve level 5s. They're the cheapest out of all of them, so you want to run a lot of them. Again, if you really are looking to get flexible, maybe swap out a Metal Greymon for either one of these. But at the end of the day, any combination of these 2 cards, keeping them around 4 just as a playset. If you want it 2 and 2, 3 and 1, again, it's totally up to you. Groundramon has the benefit of being cheaper to play from hand if you ever find yourself in that situation. That can be a much cheaper option to play from hand, which is why I give it preference, even though I personally prefer Lavo-Garutamon, just strictly for the art. But besides just being cool looking and having a fun name to say, Lavo-Garutamon, 8,000 DP is no joke. Digivolving this over that other Greymon that's already giving you plus 1,000 DP right there, and then having, say, Agumon and Digimon under it, that's making this a pretty big beater. That's a 10,000 DP Digimon with security attack plus 1. And if you're ever at that stage of the game where you just need a level 5 to finish it out and you don't want to get all the way up to your War Greymon, he can be a pretty cool choice, which is why I like to run him at 1. Make sure I've just got the option. And moving on, we're getting to the end of our Digimon in this deck. We don't run any Omnimons, mainly because they're very expensive, and also because I am trying to play a bit more off-meta here, as you've probably noticed. And speaking of off-meta, I keep 1 copy of Volcanic Dramon in this deck. This is your counter Rookie Rush card. Kind of hurts to play from hand, but it's the only way you're going to get that effect, that deletes all of your opponent's Digimon with 4,000 or less DP. This card is crazy against Rookie Rush. Gives them a lot of momentum on that next turn, but you've then got a 10,000 DP security attack plus 1 damage dealing Digimon that just wipe their entire board. This guy can be crazy. Even if you have to Digivolve into him, that's a security attack plus 1 on top of, again, that Greymon we've already talked about. He can be absolutely devastating anytime he hits the board. And moving on from that, we finally get to the titular boss monster of the deck. We've got War Greymon. I run the BT1 War Greymon just at 2, mainly because he's kind of expensive right now, and I've mainly built this from the starter deck, but also because I find his effect, while incredible, is more impressive just on the first turn that he comes out, and he can't get quite as big as the Greymon that I have as my 4 in this deck. This one does not activate security effects when it swings in, which is incredible. And on the turn that it digivolves, it has security attack +1. So if this is over all your other guys, he's going to be a pretty big beater with at least security attack +2. And not triggering your security card effects is incredible. He won't activate Gaia forces on himself. There's a lot of utility in not activating those cards. Not quite as good as jamming. He can still lose battles, I believe, through combat in the security zone, but all those other effects, flower cannons resting him, hammer sparks passing the turn in the middle of combat, none of that. So when this guy decides he's going to be hitting your opponent, you're hitting your opponent. And speaking of hitting your opponent, we've got Starter Deck War Greymon. This card is my favorite card in the deck. It is incredible. 12,000 DP, really big. Again, pile on that Digimon, the Gaiamon, or the Agumon. Either one of them, this guy's getting up to 14,000 DP at a minimum. With the Metal Greymon under him, he's going to have that effect where your opponent's going to be giving you 3 memory if they block him. And then the Greymon underneath giving him another security attack +1. That's really your ideal here because this card gets a bonus security attack for every 2 Digivolution sources under him. So if you've got those 4, he's got a regular security attack just with his swing. Then he'd get 1 from the first 2, another from the second 2, and then another from Greymon. It is insane. There's a very real possibility with this guy, if you've built him up right, that you're getting every one of your opponent's securities in that one swing. And especially with the Agumon and the Coromon to keep him alive, keep him at that huge 14,000 swing, very little is going to be taking him out. This guy has won me very many games, and I absolutely love him. Ton of fun to play with. Moving on to the Tamers and the options. This is real straightforward. Buying 2 of the structure deck over there. Got me the 4 Gaia Force, and I run it at 4. I know a lot of people are kind of deciding to run this at 3, but I find that having it at 4 guarantees you're going to see it at least once or twice in a game, and also has a pretty high chance of it being a security. That's really where you want to see. You want to be able to blow it up when it attacks and tell them to stop. This card's great. It's a shame it's as expensive as it is at the moment, but hopefully that'll come down in the future, or you're able to get your hands on one of the starter decks for a fair price. And speaking of starter decks, I've got 1 Taikamiya from the starter deck in here. It's just got a raw boost of 1000 DP to all your Digimon on your turn. 2 cost to play, and it plays itself from security. I find it very nice when one of these hits the board. Honestly, if I did drop Gaia Force for anything, I would probably just put in a second one of these, because I have never once complained about making my War Greymon bigger when I'm swinging 4 or 5 times into security. And for 2 cost to play again, it really hardly even messes up your flow of Digivolving all the time. But speaking of memory, I run 3 of the Taikamiya Memory Trainer from BT1. This guy's a lot more expensive to play from hand, but he also plays himself from the security, so he's really not that much of a bother. He makes it to where if you ever are past the turn with less than 3 memory, he'll just up that right up to 3 for you, which is great. Guaranteeing yourself at least that much memory can be huge. And he also stacks on another ability, just like the starter deck War Greymon, where if your Digimon has 4 or more Digivolution sources under it, it gets security attack +1. That's where that's where the last War Greymon security attack can come in to get them all 5 in one turn. Having him, having the Greymon, having 4 sources, and then his own attack. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that will actually do it for the deck. Not a lot of things in here besides Digimon. I'm a very creature-heavy player. I enjoy seeing creatures. I enjoy swinging, and that's what Red likes to do. That's what this deck likes to do. And I appreciate you watching. Again, if you like what you saw, feel free to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment down below if you have any suggestions or if you try the deck out and enjoy it. Thanks again for watching, and y'all have a good one.